non abbiate paura. Be not afraid.
I would like to invite each of you to listen carefully to God's voice in your heart. Listen to His voice. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Open your hearts, open up your hearts to Christ. The deepest joy there is in life is the joy that comes from God and is found in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Jesus Christ is the hope of yours, is my hope. He is the hope of the world.
Comment on what I think were the first words and the last words of Pope John Paul II. His first words as Pope when he came out in St. Peter's Square that memorable day, "Fear not, be not afraid." His first words to the church and the world, "Be not afraid." And what do I think his last words to the human family were? I think they were about the same thing, in virtue of the way he lived the last days of his life. It was hard to look at him, this Holy Father that we loved, this robust, strong, vigorous man who did so much in the course of his life, traversing the world many times over, just exuding strength. And we watched him grow old. We watch illness take its toll on him. Fear not. That was the message. In the face of all that suffering, in the face of the deterioration of his strength and vigor, don't worry. Fear not. I'm on my way to the Father's house. The very end, when he was dying on his last day, he said, "I'm happy. I'm happy. Be happy with me and pray." And that, to me, translates into a reiteration of his first words. Don't be afraid. No matter what happens, whether it happens in the world or in your personal life, be not afraid. For if God is for you, who can be against you?
As many of you probably know by now, Pope John Paul II died this afternoon. He passed away at 2:37 p.m. Eastern Time in his apartment overlooking St. Peter's Square, where thousands of people have been gathering to offer their prayers and at times to simply stand with a candle in silence. This is a live picture just outside of St. Peter's Basilica. John Paul was 84 years old and had been Pope for nearly 27 years. His influence as head of the Roman Catholic Church extended well beyond the Catholic faithful. He was an inspiration to many non-Catholics as well. We'll have more on that later in our broadcast, but right now, ABC's David Wright is at the Vatican with more on how this remarkable day has unfolded. David?
Good evening, Bob. Tonight, the Pope's Chamberlain, the Camerlengo, locked the doors of the papal apartments and broke John Paul's seals and rings. The first of a series of ancient traditions that follow the death of a pope. But news that this solemn transition had taken place first broke in an email message. The email message from the papal spokesman said, "The Holy Father died this evening at 9:37 p.m. in his private apartment." It took only a few moments for the news to reach St. Peter's Square. Archbishop Leonardo Sandri said, "Dearest brothers and sisters, our beloved Father has gone to the house of his Father." Then Cardinal Angelo Sodano called for silence for the first few moments of his meeting with our Lord. The crowd here did not need to be asked. Then they clapped. Appreciation for John Paul, an Italian tradition, but many in the crowd were crying. And then the bells. The spiritual father of 1 billion people, the first Polish pope in history, had his own more private ceremony early this morning. A group of Polish monks brought 2 golden crowns to the crypts of St. Peter's Basilica. On his deathbed, John Paul had blessed these crowns, and his dying wish was that they be placed on the Black Madonna, the most sacred Polish icon. John Paul described her as his mother. Inscribed with the Pope's motto, Totus Tuus, always yours, a parting gift from a loving son. Here in Rome and around the world, he is survived by a devoted family. Now the crowd is still gathered in St. Peter's Square, still absorbing this news. Tomorrow, Cardinal Sodano will say Mass there. Then sometime Monday, the Pope's body will be brought into the Basilica where it will lie in state, and Italy will now begin 3 days of mourning. Bob?
And as you said, surrounded by his devoted family. David Wright, the Vatican, many thanks. Well, it is very difficult to gauge these kinds of things, but perhaps nowhere is the emotion of this moment more intense than in Pope John Paul's homeland, Poland. He was the first pope to come from a Slavic country, and for Poles, he was without question a national hero. ABC's Jim Shudo is in Krakow.
The news of his death was devastating here. People stopped where they stood and held each other. There was complete silence. I have no words to speak, he said. I cannot say a thing. Then the tears. Many had told us they were praying for an end to the Pope's suffering. The news he was gone was too much for them. I cannot imagine a world without this Pope, she said. I thought I was prepared for this, but I was not. The dark square outside his former residence in Krakow was slowly illuminated by dozens, then hundreds of candles. Many Poles had a truly personal connection to this Pope, and tonight many here told us they feel like they've lost a member of their own family. In Krakow, where he was bishop and then cardinal, and more than anywhere else in his nearby hometown of Wadowice. Today in St. Mary's Church, where he was baptized 84 years ago, worshippers prayed for a peaceful end. Together with the Pope, said the priest in his sermon, we are all experiencing the mystery of life that is death. Tonight, that mystery is more raw and sorrowful than many here imagined possible.